Hello students, in today's session let's have a look at the great personalities who have made significant contribution to management gurus. Everybody would have heard the word management or simply manage. Let's look at the definition of management. Management is the process of designing and maintaining an environment in which individuals working together in groups efficiently accomplish selected aims. It implies there are the following observations which one can actually think of. As managers, people carry out the managerial functions of planning, organizing, staffing, leading and controlling. Management applies to any kind of organization. It applies to managers at all organizational levels. The aim of all managers is the same, to create surplus. Managing is concerned with productivity. This implies effectiveness and efficiency. A person who gets the work done through others willingly obtain results by establishing an environment for effective group behavior to accomplish group goals with the least amount of time, money, materials and personal dissatisfaction. That's pretty hard, I believe. Now let's have a look at the evolution of management. Dates back to when people first attempted to accomplish goals by working together in groups. Avoid rediscovering previously known ideas. As you can see, Frederick Taylor, acknowledged as the father of scientific management, experience as an apprentice, a common laborer, a foreman, a master mechanic and then chief engineer of Midway Steel Company, Philadelphia. Studied firsthand the problems and attitudes of workers and to see the greatest possibilities for improving the quality of management. His primary concern was to increase productivity through greater efficiency in production and increased pay for workers through the application of scientific method, higher productivity. Taylor's principles replacing rules of thumb with science, that is organized knowledge, obtaining harmony in group action rather than discord, workers, managers and owners. Achieving cooperation of human beings rather than chaotic individualism, working for maximum output rather than restricted output, developing all workers to the fullest extent possible for their own and their company's highest prosperity. Productivity. Problem of productivity was a matter of ignorance on the part of both management and labor. Neither managers nor workers knew what constituted a fair day's work and a fair day's pay. Both managers and workers were concerned too much with how they should divide the surplus that arose from productivity. The split in thinking between pay and profits are not enough with increasing the surplus so that both owners and laborers could get more compensation. Productivity is the answer to both higher wages and profits. Application of scientific methods instead of custom and rule of thumb could yield productivity without the expenditure of more human energy or effort. Henry Fayol's activities in industrial undertaking could be divided into 6 groups. Henry Fayol also postulated the 14 principles. We'll go one by one. Number 1, division of work, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, subordination of individual to general interest, remuneration, centralization, scalar chain, order, equity, stability, initiative, and the last one, esprit de corps. Peter Ferdinand Drucker, commonly known as Drucker, was an Austrian-born American management consultant, educator and author whose writings contributed to the philosophical and practical foundations of the modern business corporation. He was also a leader in the development of management education. He invented the concept known as MBO, Management by Objectives and Self-Control, and he has been described as the founder of modern management. Drucker is considered the single most important thought leader in the world of management, and several ideas run through most of his writings. Decentralization and simplification. Drucker discounted the command and control model and asserted that companies work best when they are decentralized. According to Drucker, corporations tend to produce too many products, hire employees they don't need, when a better solution would be outsourcing and expand into economic sectors that they should avoid. The concept of knowledge worker in his 1959 book, The Landmarks of Tomorrow. Since then, knowledge-based work has become increasingly important in business worldwide. The prediction of death of the blue-collar worker, the changing face of the US auto industry, is a testimony to this prediction. The concept of what eventually came out to be known as outsourcing. He used the example of front room and back room of each business. A company should be engaged in only the front room activities that are critical to supporting its core business. Backroom activities should be handed over to other companies for whom these tasks are the front room activities. Respect for the worker. Drucker believed that employees are assets, not liabilities. He taught that knowledgeable workers are essential ingredients of the modern economy and that a hybrid management model is the sole method of demonstrating an employee's value to the organization. Central to this philosophy is the view that people are an organization's most valuable resource and that a manager's job is both to prepare people, to perform, and give them freedom to do so. Chris Argyris was an American business theorist, professor emeritus at Harvard Business School, and a thought leader at Monitor Group. Argyris is next to Richard Beckard, Edgar Schein, and Warren Bennis, known as co-founder of organizational development and known for seminal work of learning organizations. Chris' earlier research explored the impact of formal organizational structures, control systems, and management on individuals and how they responded and adapted to them. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth were husband and wife team who worked as engineers in the early part of the 20th century. Lillian carried on this work after the death of Frank in 1924. Their main focus was on the fields of motion study and time study, combined with an interest on the psychology of efficiency and work. The Gilbreth theory held that there was one best way to do any task. Efficiency, according to the Gilbreth business management theory, could therefore be improved by finding this one best way and replicating it throughout the manufacturing process. The Gilbreths used new technologies such as film to break motions down into incremental parts, which they called therbligs. By reducing the number of therbligs for any task, one could increase the efficiency of the worker. Henry L. Gantt was an American mechanical engineer and management consultant who is best known for developing the Gantt chart in the 1910s. Gantt charts were employed on major infrastructure projects, including the Hoover Dam and interstate highway system, and continue to be an important tool in project management and program management. Henry Gantt's legacy to project management is the following. The Gantt chart, still accepted as an important management tool today. It provides a graphic schedule for the planning and controlling of work and recording progress towards stages of a project. The chart has a modern variation, program evaluation and review technique, commonly known as PERT. Industrial efficiency, the task and bonus system, the social responsibility of business. Hugo Munsterberg was a German-American psychologist. He was one of the pioneers in applied psychology, extending his research and theories to industrial, organizational, legal, medical, clinical, educational, and business settings. Munsterberg encountered immense turmoil with the outbreak of the First World War. Torn between his loyalty to America and his homeland, he often defended Germany's actions, attracting highly contrasting reactions. His paper, Psychology and the Market, in 1909 suggested that psychology could be used in many different industrial applications, including management, vocational decisions, advertising, job performance, and employee motivation. Walter Dill Scott was one of the first applied psychologists. He applied psychology to various business practices such as personnel selection and advertising. The nature of applied psychology was too demanding for Walter Dill Scott to continue his research on human behavior. which leads his focus to establishing his own theories. Scott developed laws of suggestibility as a critical mechanism of advertising. He argued that consumers don't act rationally and therefore can be easily influenced. According to Scott, consumers' suggestibility was based on three factors: emotion, sympathy, and sentimentality. He believed that advertising was primarily a persuasive tool rather than an informational device, and that advertising had its effect on consumers in a nearly hypnotic manner. People were thought to be highly susceptible to suggestion, as long as suggestion was available to them under a variety of conditions. Karl Emil Maximilian, or simply Max Weber, was a German sociologist, philosopher, jurist, and political economist whose ideas profoundly influenced social theory and social research. Weber is often cited with Emile Durkheim and Karl Marx as among the three founders of sociology. Max Weber's bureaucratic theory or model is sometimes also known as the legal rational model. The model tries to explain bureaucracy from a rational point of view via 9 main characteristics or principles. These are as follows. Weber wrote that the modern bureaucracy in both the public and private sector relies on the following principles. First, it is based on the general principle of precisely defined and organized across the board competencies of the various officers. These competencies are underpinned by rules, laws, or administrative regulations. For Weber, this means Vilfredo Federico Damaso Pareto, shortly called as Wilfred Pareto, was an Italian engineer, sociologist, economist, political scientist, and philosopher. He made several important contributions to economics, particularly in the study of income distribution and in the analysis of individual choices. He was also responsible for popularizing the use of the term elite in social analysis. He introduced the concept of Pareto efficiency and helped develop the field of microeconomics. He was also the first to discover that income follows a Pareto distribution, which is a power law probability distribution. The Pareto principle was named after him and built on observations of is such as that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Some economic concepts in current use are based on his work. The Pareto index is a measure of the inequality of income distribution. He argued that in all countries and times, the distribution of income and wealth is highly skewed, with a few holding most of the wealth. The Pareto chart is a special type of histogram used to weave causes of a problem in order of severity from largest to smallest. It is a statistical tool that graphically demonstrates the Pareto principle, or simply the 80-20 rule. Pareto's law concerns the distribution of income. The Pareto distribution is a probability distribution used among other things as a mathematical realization of Pareto's law. Chester Irving Bernard was an American business executive, public administrator, and the author of pioneering work in management theory and organizational studies. His landmark 1938 book, The Functions of the Executive, sets out a theory of organization and of the functions of executives in organizations. The book has been widely assigned in university courses in management theory and organizational sociology. The main article, The Functions of the Executive, Bernard's classic, 1938, suggests the functions of the executive, but not from a merely intuitive point of view, but instead deriving them from his conception of cooperative systems. Frederick Ewing Herzberg was an American psychologist who became one of the most influential names in business management. He is most famous for introducing job enrichment and the motivator hygiene theory. His 1968 publication, One More Time, How Do You Motivate Employees, has sold 1.2 million reprints by 1987 and was the most requested article from the Harvard Business Review. Herzberg proposed the motivator hygiene theory, also known as the two-factor theory of job satisfaction. According to his theory, people are influenced by two sets of factors. Abraham Harold Maslow was an American psychologist who was best known for creating Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a theory of psychological health predicated on the fulfilling innate human needs in priority, culminating in self-actualization. Maslow was a psychology professor at Alliant International University, Brandeis University, Brooklyn College, New School for Social Research, and Columbia University. He stressed the importance of focusing on the positive qualities in people as opposed to treating them as bag of symptoms. Please look at the illustrated diagram for Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Herbert Alexander Simon, a Nobel laureate, was an American political scientist, economist, sociologist, psychologist, and computer scientist whose research ranged across the fields of cognitive psychology, cognitive science, computer science, public administration, economics, management, philosophy of science, sociology, and political science, unified by studies of decision making. With almost 1,000 highly cited publications, he was one of the most influential social scientists of the 20th century. William Edwards Deming was an American engineer, statistician, professor, author, lecturer, and management consultant. Educated initially as an electrical engineer and later specializing in mathematical physics, he helped develop the sampling techniques which is still used by the US Department of the Census and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In his book, The New Economics for Industry, Government and Education, Deming's advocacy of the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, his 14 points and 7 deadly diseases have had tremendous influence outside manufacturing and have been applied in other arenas, such as in the relatively new field of sales process engineering. The 7 deadly diseases include lack of constancy of purpose, emphasis on short-term profits, evaluation by performance, merit rating or annual review of performance, mobility of management, running a company on visible figures, excessive medical costs, excessive costs of warranty fueled by lawyers who work for contingency fees. Joseph Moses Juran was a Romanian-born American engineer and management consultant. He was an evangelist for quality and quality management. Having written several books on those subjects, he was the brother of academic award winner Nathan H. Juran. Pareto Principle. In 1941, Juran stumbled across the work of Wilfred Pareto and began to apply the Pareto Principle to quality issues. For example, 80% of a problem is caused by 20% of the causes. This is also known as the vital few and the trivial many. In later years, Juran preferred the vital few and the useful many to signal the remaining 80% of the causes should not be totally ignored. The Juran Trilogy. Juran was one of the first to write about the cost of poor quality. This was illustrated by his Juran Trilogy, an approach to cross-functional management which is composed of 3 managerial processes: quality planning, quality control, and quality improvement. Without change, there will be a constant waste. During change, there will be increased costs. But after the improvement, margins will be higher and the increased costs get recouped. Kaoru Ishikawa was a Japanese organizational theorist, professor at the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Tokyo. Noted for his quality management innovations, He is considered a key figure in the development of quality initiatives in Japan, particularly the Quality Circle. He is best known outside Japan for the Ishikawa or cause-effect diagram, also known as fishbone diagram, often used in the analysis of industrial processes. Ishikawa diagrams, also called fishbone diagrams, herringbone diagrams, cause-effect diagrams, or simply Fishikawa, are casual diagrams created by Ishikawa in 1968. Common uses of the Ishikawa diagram are product design and quality, defect prevention to identify potential factors causing an overall effect. Each cause or reason for imperfection is a source of variation. Causes are usually grouped into major categories to identify these sources of variation. Hope you have got a good insight on the gurus of management. Until we meet again, bye. Wishing you all the very best.